Welcome to Let's Talk Transportation, a podcast series of the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, also known as the MPO. We talk about the ins and outs of transportation in Broward County and all of Southeast Florida, why it matters, how it works, and the challenges and opportunities related to achieving great transportation. I'm your host, Greg Stewart, Executive Director of the MPO, and I'm joined by
Monica Cepero, County Administrator for Broward County.
And Monica and I are going to talk a little bit about transportation and what it's like to live here in Southeast Florida. So, Monica, how did you end up in South Florida, and what brought you into the field you're doing today as an administrator? That's
a loaded question, Greg. There's a lot to say. I think we could take the whole time on that, but
well, wait, no.
Exactly, no. So, I've been here in Broward County for 15 years, working for Broward County. Before that, I've been in public sector service for over 30 years.
Awesome.
So I started my roots. I grew up in Vero Beach, went up to FSU as a Seminole. I stayed in Tallahassee for 20 years. So I did my undergrad and graduate work in Tallahassee at FSU. Stayed in the area and started working as an intern in the city manager's office in Tallahassee. When I finished my master's, I also did a little stint in the legislative process as an intern in college.
That's pretty awesome.
And then I really, started in the budget office. I cut my teeth in
Tallahassee,
in municipal budgeting and City of Tallahassee. I stayed there for 8 years. Then, as luck would have it, reluctantly took a position in state government, but it was the best decision I ever made. I was asked to join Governor Bush's executive team in the budget world and
awesome.
Doing local government work. And then I kind of did a little bit of everything there that didn't fit. And
when you were doing the work with, then Governor Bush, because he was in Commerce years ago, you and I I guess we must have crossed paths multiple times.
We had to have, yeah.
Because I am too a Seminole. LME Building is where I got my PA degree. The bigger question I got for you is, so you ended up in state government, and were you in the governor's office or okay?
Yeah, I was in the governor's office, and I stayed with him for 7 of his 8 years. I started January of 2000, and my last day working for the state was his last day in office.
That's amazing.
And I went into a private sector role for 18 months and quickly found out that my passion of working for the public just wasn't really satisfied.
Right.
So that's how I ended in Broward.
Public service is a calling.
It is.
I remember I had the argument with my father because my father was, Mr. Business and business only. And when I said I was going to go into government work, he looked at me like I had 3 heads on my shoulders. And he said, "Why would you do that?" And it's a really neat calling, especially when you do it and you do it well, like you're doing now. Having somebody, like I've observed a lot. Now, growing up in Vero, we used to go up that way when I was a kid. I grew up in Boca Raton when no one knew where it was, before Del Boca Vista was a thing on the Seinfeld. And so, how did that influence, I guess, growing up in Vero, having the chance to live in the state capital, and then coming back to South Florida? What were the things that you were thinking, you would want to be able to influence and move forward?
It's an interesting question, Greg. When I took on the role of county administrator 18 months ago, it's just flown by, a lot of people said, "What do you want your legacy to be?" I said, "There's nothing about legacy. This is about wanting to do something for a community." And there's a saying that it really holds kind of the key to the passion for my public service, and comes from the Athenian Oath, and it's I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically it's to leave a community better than what you found it. And that is what it's all about. It's about making a difference to the people, everyday people, and the way they go about living their lives. And in the role that I am fortunate to fill, I get to help a lot of different people and make their lives a little bit easier. And that's what I hope to really make a difference, long term. And that's what I hope to look back on my career and be able to, look back and smile and know that I was able to have a small part in making a difference in people's lives.
I think that's the biggest challenge that faces public sector employees too. It's like, there's always that question, well, why are you doing this? And that legacy side, I understand that too, but having gone to the same school you did in grad school, that Athenian code is so important because it's something to live by. Knowing that you are able to touch the things that are improving people's lives and making Broward a better place, and all of Southeast Florida. Like, we're the center of this region. So I think that's really awesome. What are the things right now that you're working towards when we talk about transportation issues? Are there things that are personal to you that you want to see move forward, making this place better? We can talk everything from, what you're doing with the Broward commuter rail services to traffic signalization, because that's everybody always calls me about that. So what are you thinking?
So, it's interesting. There are so many different projects and so many facets of our transportation network, as you well know. You live this every day also.
Live and breathe.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the things that really get me excited about, transformational changes that we can really have an impact in this area, in this community, is really about, you think about the connectivity, not just north, south, and east and west, but really amongst the real economic engines of our community. The people, not just the people that live here and visit, regionally. Right. It is these international visitors that we get. The impression that we leave on that sector is enormous, and it cannot be overstated at all. So, I'm really looking forward in the next 5 to 10 years, really seeing some major transformative projects and initiatives, not just our traditional transportation, busing, and some of the light rail things and commuter rail that we're looking to have even in the near future, is the intermodal center at the airport, the automated people mover. When we go to all these major, airports around the country, something that we just kind of think about and take for granted is, how do you get from one terminal to the other? Right. That is something we're going to do here as well, and it's going to make a big impact. And then lastly, which is kind of like the crowning jewel and the one that I really, really want to see before I retire, hopefully totally in place and running smoothly, is that connection between the airport, the seaport, and our new expansion of convention center and the new hotel, the headquarters hotel.
Well, I hope there's more. You're not retiring before that.
No, but these are, each one of those are almost $1 billion project.
And transformative in a way that is going to change the consumer's experience in arriving and being here in Broward. One of my Corey was just on the other day, and we had the conversation actually about what the consumer experience is. And then Mark Gale from the airport, we had the discussion about the intermodal center and how it's going to connect to the convention center and what that actually looks like. I think that's, that forward thinking, that forward lean is something that Broward's really actually good at, and moving that forward. I mean, I grew up here, in Boca again, but we would go to Fort Lauderdale. You go shopping down here because you didn't really even have department stores when I was a little kid. There wasn't even a McDonald's. And so, well, there was a big parade for McDonald's, let me tell you what, when it did open. But that said, it was just, Broward always had that little bit of a lean towards the direction. The bus systems were like city run when I was a kid, and then the county took over the operations, unifying the 3 bus systems, Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, and Hollywood. There was a couple of private bus systems, and that ability to kind of understand the regional nature of even traffic signalization. That was something that kind of was born here. Down in Miami, things were kind of operated a little bit differently. Boca Raton still operates its own light system as compared to the county. It's not efficient when you think about how we all grew together.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So I didn't really touch on that, but, our traffic engineering division, we work very closely with the Florida Department of Transportation in this. But in fact, they have some space co-locate with us in our traffic engineering, center, command center, if you will. And that is really critical, because what a lot of people, the average citizen, doesn't really realize is that all of that is under the county auspice. And because of that, we can then integrate and collaborate very well with the state system also. But so when there is a jam up in one part of the county, we can flow the traffic and really help keep traffic moving a lot better. Even though, we are in South Florida, we've got, 2 million residents here that just live here alone. But as people that live in Broward work in Palm Beach or Miami or vice versa. And so all three counties are pretty fluid in that regard. But when you come through our county, that is a tremendous benefit we have for that connectivity and the ability to being seamless in that transportation.
And that makes a lot of other folks jealous of our region. I'll be honest with you. I do a lot of conversations around the country, and they go, "This is how this is operating?" Because I come back here and go, "Wow, this is great." But you go to the Chicagos of the world, you go to the LAs, you go to Manhattan and all the suburban areas around there, and they don't operate that way. They actually don't. There's a lot of very strange interactions and divided lines that really don't even exist. And I think that's, again, championing that and you're in charge of it. The other day when we were at the airport, I'm going to bring that up, we were coming down the escalator. I looked at you and I'm like, you're in control of all this ultimately. And I think you said one of my favorite things, which was, I might be, but I have all these people and everybody's working to that. And a lot of them have been on the show, and, they always come back to saying, well, we get to work together in this collaborative nature. And you're fostering that environment, which to me is really awesome. So with the airport and talking to Mark, he actually had a lot of conversation about the ATM, the people mover system that you're going to put in. Do you think, is this something that we're talking a decade? Do you think it's going to be longer, shorter?
Shorter. I don't have the exact dates, but we're definitely moving in that direction. In fact, that as well as the intermodal center, we're already starting some of the beginning phases of that and the environmental work. So we're very excited about that. Everything's, was ready to go. We got the kind of nods from the federal government on being able to start some of those initiatives on the environmental work. And
Good.
So that's getting kicked off. We're very excited about that moving forward. So like I said, in the next 10 years, I'm wanting all of those things to be done. So that's a pretty heavy lift, but a lot of moving parts. And what you mentioned about collaboration, that is another thing that is, the first thing I wanted to do coming in to this role was to do that, is to make sure, the county can't do everything by itself. Nobody can do anything by themselves. And quite frankly, we all have a vested interest in each other's successes. And if we don't work together, we're all going to fail. And it's splintered and inefficient, and we're all using the same pool of money for the most part. The taxpayers fund us, and we have a responsibility to be as efficient with those dollars as we can be. And the only way I know how to do things is to work collaboratively and to really bring people to the table. And when you talked about my directors, I always say one of the things that we can all collectively tout success is because I put people around me that are smarter than me. They are the experts in their industry, and you have to look to them for their recommendations and listen. We're not always going to agree, even amongst my team, but everyone feels heard at the end of the day, and we make a decision that is reflective of what is in the best interest of the community.
And that whole idea of team play and all that, it's an important factor. I always tell people I'm not the smartest person in the room. I really don't believe I am, because you always should have people that are smarter than you around you and to advise you. That doesn't mean that the smartest people don't always make the right decisions either. So that balance is so important as well. My compliments to you and how you're operating everything with the county. It's just been phenomenal. It's me watching this growth and change as well within the organizations that you are responsible for. I would like to have you back as, Mark moves forward with the airport. We'll maybe have by then we might actually have video cameras, and maybe we can show some video of the expansion plans,
Great.
Where you are. I'd love to have you back actually to talk a little bit about maybe some affordable housing and transportation connectivity, and see where we go with the Primo plan. We didn't really touch much on that, but that's a really another exciting opportunity for the residents of Broward and their visitors. I mean, we get hundreds of thousands of people here a year, as you're saying. So, what's their experience like? And can we get them out of the rental cars?
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. I would love to come. When you mentioned the Primo plan, that is significant because we're looking at over 200 miles of expansion of transit networking. So that's a very exciting initiative. As a whole, we could spend a whole hour on that.
Exactly.
But I'm happy to come back and happy to report on progress.
Awesome.
And we'll give you all the material you want to put on your website to share along with this because there's a lot of exciting news to share.
Yeah. Monica, thank you for coming in today. Appreciate it. And look forward to working with you into the future.
As always, Greg, thank you.
The Let's Talk Transportation podcast is produced by the Broward MPO, where every day we fund and implement projects that move people and goods, create jobs, and strengthen communities. Learn more at browardmpo.org and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Speak Up Broward. If there is a transportation topic you'd like to know more about, let us know by sending an email to info@browardmpo.org. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance in the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by MPO employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of the MPO or any of its officials. For complaints, questions, or concerns about civil rights or non-discrimination, or for special requests under the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact Carl Ema, Title VI Coordinator at 954-876-0052 or EMAC at browardmpo.org.